Yo, 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 what is going on, everybody? This is Matt Kowalas and Eric Pauly back with the Bettor's Almanac podcast. We are now in week 17 of the NFL season and episode 13 of the Bettor's Almanac podcast. Last week, another crazy week in the NFL. Eric and I are going to break it down once again, but let's catch up with my boy Eric, who is red hot right now, hottest over at Sports Memo. Eric, how's it going, buddy?
What's going on, brother? I want to say happy holidays to everybody. I hope you guys had a great Christmas, whatever you guys celebrate. Looking forward to the new year. But bro, it's thing is like this run, right, really started in week 8. So going back to my season, week 1 won 8.27 units. Weeks 2, 3, and 4 gave it all back, was then in the negative. Weeks 5 and 6 got back to the positive, went down week 7. And then I haven't had a losing week since week 8. So it's honestly been dope. A 7-3 run last weekend. Took advantage of some of the weather we were talking about, some teasers, and just looking to end up strong, bro. Because like I said, if I haven't said it on the show, but as when it gets to me, right, like once week 18 is over with, obviously the playoffs are so, people want to bet the playoffs because it's the playoffs and there's some great games, wild card weekend, a bunch of matchups, but those lines, man, are so sharp. Like I'm thinking I'm going to have like 5 plays max throughout the entire postseason. So this marathon is actually coming to an end right before our eyes, honestly. Like the last Thursday night game last night, Monday night game is this Monday, and obviously a hell of a game that we're going to talk about. But nah, man, it's the grind has been real, and it's nice to see it honestly kind of slowing down, but looking to keep with the momentum for 2 more weeks. How are you doing, Matt? What's been going on?
Yeah, honestly, so I had my first negative week since I believe week 11 or week 12 last week. And we talked about this before the show, and I was just too heavy on the Miami Dolphins. And even though I do think that was potentially the right pick, because I think Tua did go down with a concussion at some point in that game. And even when you were watching, you were like, what the hell is going on out there? Like, this guy is making throws that a high school quarterback wouldn't make.
Yeah.
So again, I went too heavy on the Dolphins. I actually had 2 Dolphins picks, plus the Dolphins were in a teaser of mine. That was just a mistake that I personally made, and something I'll learn from going forward. Looking at everything last week, though, the strategy that we discussed very much worked. Attacking those underdogs in those cold weather outdoor games, attacking those unders in those cold weather outdoor games. So again, even though my picks personally on the show didn't do that well, Eric's did. So that's what's always nice about having 2 people on the show. The strategy that we gave out was definitely very, very successful. And it's something that I'm going to continue doing until this season ends and the playoff starts. And another thing that I think we need to touch on is motivation at this point in time. What teams are motivated, what teams are checking out and already looking to the offseason and things of that nature. You know what I mean? But before we get into everything, you got to shout out our proud partner in PointsBet Sportsbook, and obviously got to shout out Sports Memo for sponsoring the podcast. That is who Eric and I both work for. We have free picks and plays. We have paid picks and plays over there. And then, of course, we have everything on the podcast. But if you are picking a play, we hope you go with PointsBet Sportsbook, because right now it's time to get your swagger back with PointsBet. New customers can sign up and use the code Almanac to get 5 second chance free bets of up to $500. That's 5 straight days of second chances where PointsBet will match your losing wager in free bets. So use promo code Almanac and enjoy more live betting markets than ever before. PointsBet, your move. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-270-7117. And last week we gave away 2 $50 free bets. And the winners of those free bets are Zachary Simmons and Eric Williams. Reach out to Eric or I, or DM the Bettor's Almanac podcast, and we will get those free bets over to you. Thank you for your support and tuning in every single week.
Appreciate you, boys. But Matt, I think you made a great point about the motivational factor, and we're going to get into a lot of this now. So yes, they're like, if you look at the Denver Broncos, right, they were laying points on the road on Christmas against a Rams team that we obviously know is depleted from a roster perspective, but the Broncos were depleted from a morale perspective, and that's what turned into a 51-14 blowout for Baker Mayfield and the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this is like kind of where that like sentiment comes into play, and it's not as simple as like, you have teams that need to win and you're going to bet on them, because historically when you get to week 17 and 18, those teams that really need to win that game to make the postseason believe it or not, and I don't have the trend numbers in front of me, but those teams often lose in those situations. We're going to get into a game right now in our underdogs that Matt and I both agree with is one of our favorite plays of the day. And that's the Cleveland Browns on the money line against my Washington Commanders. And I hate that it's literally been 3 straight weeks of fading my boys in a playoff race, but I don't know. I have a couple of my buddies, they chirp me. They're like, dude, how are you? You're not a real fan. Like, betting against them. Like, how do you only care about the playoff hunt? You care about the units. I'm like, when it comes to gambling, I mean, you can't have any sort of allegiances, right? I
Yeah.
see it as I know my team is overvalued or undervalued in the market, so I'm going to capitalize on it. And this is a situation where the Washington Commanders need to win this football game. And I just don't think that they're laying points against a team that they're worse than. And I don't understand it whatsoever. Matt, talk to me though. Why I'll get into a little bit why I'm digging the Browns, but I know you are too. Tell me why my team has going to have dwindling playoff hopes after this weekend when Cleveland comes to town and beats the shit out of us.
Yeah, I think right now too, it's a time where you want to back consistency rather than some team going out fixing everything in 1 week and going out and getting a win. You know what I mean? When I look at this Commanders team, there's just the quarterback carousel going on, and I don't think they have a ton of faith in either Heineke or Carson Wentz. And as for the Cleveland Browns, they did lose last week and against the Saints in a game that they were favored. It was a pretty bad loss. But this is a Cleveland Browns defense that has also been playing very, very well. In 5 straight weeks, they've held their opponent under 17 points. And, we talked about this a little bit before. I think this game is going to be Deshaun Watson's coming out party, last week in Cleveland, he has 3 games under his belt now. This is going to be his 4th, I believe. And when you're playing in Cleveland last week, it's just a tough spot. There was a ton of wind. It was really bad weather. Washington probably won't be perfect, but it's going to be better than it was in Cleveland.
No, it's going to be nice, dog. It's going to be a nice weekend, bro. The Cleveland Browns are coming off 2 of the worst weather games of not only the season, but of honestly the last couple of years. And Deshaun Watson looked better and better every single game, and they were letting him even sling it in that windstorm. So he's going to come down to more or less perfect conditions in DC this weekend, bro. And that's a scary sight for us.
Yeah, no, I'm with you too. And as underdogs, the Browns are 4-3 against the spread, so not amazing, but in the positive. And as as the favorite, the Commanders are 3-4-1. So I think this is a great spot for the Browns. I think they're going to be able to get back to running Nick Chubb, running Kareem Hunt, using that play action attack with Deshaun Watson on top of that. And one thing that we haven't seen a ton of, we saw it last week with the touchdown. Deshaun Watson had a 12-yard touchdown run. He is a dual threat quarterback. He is someone who can extend the play with his legs. He's someone who can get outside that pocket. And in this game, they're definitely going to need it with someone like Chase Young coming off the edge and things like that. And also, one thing that Chase Young does do, and he's coming back early in the season, he is somewhat undisciplined at times. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do. And when I say undisciplined, I mean he loves to go for sacks. So that means he's going to come up the field and leave that gap open. So he's not always the most gap disciplined player in the world. So when stuff like that occurs, you can run Nick Chubb there. You can run a draw with Kareem Hunt. There's a lot more options. So I do think schematically the Browns can have a better game plan than that of the Commanders on top of it. So again, I really do. I like the Browns look here.
Dude, you're 100% spot on with everything. That's exactly how I view this game. The only way you would think you have an edge with Washington is the Browns are the 30th ranked rush defense in terms of DVOA. And Washington, of course, during our win streak and how we've built this momentum for a playoffs push has been based on the ground game. But the fact that we don't even have a quarterback that we're like, hey, we need you to go win a football game. We might as well flip the coin of who's going to play this weekend, Carson Wentz or Taylor Heineke. So there's no confidence in that under center situation. And do I have faith? And can this work out, right? Yes. Can it work if we run the Heineke offense with Wentz where we're handing the ball off, 6 out of 10 times? And then Wentz, when he has to make those throws that Heineke couldn't make, if he makes those throws, is there a possibility that Wentz is a clear upgrade over Heineke? 100%. Yeah. But that also depends on, first of all, the offensive line keeping up their part, which has been horrible for Washington this year. But number 2, how limited Carson Wentz really is athletically, right? It's we've talked about how he's a statue in the pocket all year long. Is actually ridiculous. I can't believe how slowly he moves, he's standing in quicksand, honestly. So a lot of what Washington has done with Heineke, though, and they haven't been doing really many designed runs over until the last couple of weeks, but Wentz is going to have to make some throws off play action that to prove that he's better than Heineke, because Heineke couldn't make some of those throws. He would leave them in the air. He would throw turnover-worthy plays. But if Wentz could kind of use that big arm that he actually has and hit those tight windows with some spirals, some C's, I'm not talking 50-yard bombs. I'm talking 12-yard out routes. You know what I mean? Yeah. Getting it on the numbers and letting our guys, because we do have talented skill players, getting some yards after the catch. But like you were saying, the fact that, again, the no confidence in the Commanders, Deshaun Watson heating up, getting better. We having Cameron Curl back, our strong safety, he's expected to play, is huge. He's been amazing for us this season. And 3 of our 4 worst statistical games on defense are when he was not in the lineup, including last week. So that is a huge boost. But like you said, like we talked about before the show, this, in my opinion, is going to be the Deshaun Watson Cleveland breakout game. And it's going to unfortunately be at the hands of a Commanders loss. And then our playoff hopes are going to die down a lot, because the way that it is right now, Washington wins 2 games, bro. We win our last 2 games, we are in the postseason, no questions asked. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
Real quick, another point that I wanted to bring up too is, we didn't even mention the turnovers with Carson Wentz or with Taylor Heineke. You're also, how much confidence do you have in the Browns if the Commanders turn the ball over twice? That would give me a ton of confidence, and that's what Carson Wentz does. You know what I mean? He turns the football over. So you can almost guarantee he's going to do it at least once. Yeah. You know what I mean? He has that overthrow that just goes into the safety's belly all the time. On the 12-yard in cut, or even the out route where someone undercuts it or something along those lines. He just makes mistakes, and when you don't have that consistency where you've been playing under center game in, game out, and you even said they don't even know who's starting yet.
No, Wentz is playing, but it seems like they've just picked it out of a hat. You know what I mean? It's like, we got from Carson, we have from Taylor right now. What do we do? I guess let's try Carson again. You know what I mean? That's kind of what it's like.
And one thing, this is kind of random because it has to do with the NBA, but one of my biggest strategies with the NBA is fading a team when the star is added back in. Because a lot of people think, oh, this is great. Like Carson Wentz has a big arm. He can do this. He can do that. But in reality, you're plugging a player in and you're disrupting all the chemistry around it. It takes time to get that chemistry with Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, guys like that. And when you've been out for an extended period of time, it does take a couple games to get back. Look at Deshaun Watson, on the other side. He came back and was playing like trash at first. And to our point, this is the game we think he's going to go off because, again, it takes time. It takes 1, 2, 3, 4 games sometimes to get your legs back under you to make those throws and get those timing down for those out routes, in cuts, stuff like that.
And if anyone is kind of thinking look what Carson Wentz did in that 49ers game. He came in, he led that touchdown drive. Dude, that was basically fucking garbage time, bro. Come on. That wasn't the second quarter, trying to put it together. That was more or less garbage time. We get that touchdown to bring it within, I think it was 10. And we had to get the 2-point conversion to make it, 1 possession game. And what happens? He gets freaking sacked. Yeah. Right. And we couldn't guard Kayvon Thibodeau. Then Nick Bosa, obviously an amazing football player, soon to be DPOY, put the hammer on us. What the hell do you think Myles Garrett's going to do, right? It's not like I have confidence in our team to we're triple teaming Myles Garrett every single play. We haven't done that. I don't know what our offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, whatever, they haven't made those kind of in-game adjustments on the fly to at least chip. And even a Myles Garrett or Nick Bosa, just chip them, bro. You need to have 2 guys on them every single play. And last but not least on this game, and obviously I'm not in the locker room, I can't confirm or whatever, but I just have this strong belief that this team doesn't like Carson Wentz as a human being, right? I'm not saying they hate him like a Russell Wilson scenario, but there's no doubt in my mind that the mindset and the mentality and just the vibes, bro, are just higher when they're rooting for Taylor Heineke on that sideline. So hate to say it in the must-win game because I also have the Washington Commanders over 7.5 wins. So I need a win in these next 2 weeks to catch those futures also. But is there a path to win 100%? Carson Wentz, no turnovers. We actually block. We run the football down their throat, and we hold them down defense because our defense is great. We win 2017. Is that an option? 100%. You can also see the Cleveland Browns beating us. Also 28-20, 100%. Honestly, unfortunately. But let's go to Monday night, the biggest game on the board, not only in terms of importance because there's playoff seeding on the line, but just the 2 of the best teams in football going at it. You like the Bengals, pulled out the upset. Hard not to believe that, but talk to me about why you're loving Cincy.
Yeah, so I'll be honest. Right now, Cincy's kind of the team that I'm looking to in a number of ways. So we usually don't do this, but just talking futures real quick. This is a Bengals team that's plus 800 to win the Super Bowl. And when you're getting odds like that, it's not like I'm actually. I think this Bengals team could go on a nice run. Could they potentially win the Super Bowl? Yeah, for sure they could. But you're getting a big odds play like that to hedge it along the way as well. Anytime that I get a big Super Bowl odds play and they make, say, the AFC Championship or the NFC Championship, I start hedging right away. But you also have to put up the money to be able to do that. You know what I mean? But again, just wanted to touch on that because I think the Bengals are live as any team in the AFC, especially at plus 800. Like, again, this is a team that beat the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are plus 350 to win the AFC. To win the Super Bowl, I'm sorry. The Bills are plus 400 to win the Super Bowl. And, we'll see how this goes in this matchup. And I have the Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengals face off against the Buffalo Bills at home on Monday Night Football, potentially the best Monday Night Football matchup of the year. They finally got it right with one of these matchups because Thursday Night Football and Monday Night Football have been pretty rough all year long. The Bengals are 11-4 on the season while the Bills are 12-3, and both teams have a lot to play for coming into this matchup with playoff seeding on the line. But from the Bengals' perspective, they still do not have this division locked up, and the Buffalo Bills do have their division locked up. And, the Bengals against the spread have been one of the best teams in football. They've covered 7 games in a row, 12-3 against the spread on the season. And this is a Bills team that, yes, they're 12-3, but they've been somewhat inconsistent in my eyes, 7-1 against the spread. And personally, I actually trust Joe Burrow, more than I do Josh Allen. I honestly do. This time of the year, I feel like Joe Burrow is just one of those guys who has a certain type of moxie, a certain type of swag, something that the boys get behind. And with Josh Allen, too many times I have seen him with these late interceptions, late fumbles, whether it be in a big game in the regular season or a big game in the postseason, and this is a Bengals defense that really hasn't been amazing on the season. That's my biggest worry in backing the Bengals. But they have had a solid rush defense, ranking 7th throughout the NFL. And this is a Buffalo team who, they don't always rush the football that well. They do tend to get away from it pretty early at times. And if that does occur, I think the Bengals can prep for that and expect for that and drop some guys back a little faster. They're definitely going to have to figure out a way to get pressure on Josh Allen. He is obviously one of those guys who can do things with his legs and they need to contain him. But the Bills are on the road. 2 of their 3 losses have come on the road. And, although they're on a 6-game win streak, I'm still rather unimpressed with it because when they face the Miami Dolphins at home, outdoors, bad weather, Miami almost beat them and maybe should have beat them. We saw Raheem Mostert run for over 136 yards, and we saw Tyreek Hill doing it, Jalen Waddle, Tua absolutely shredding them. And one thing with that Dolphins team, and I'm sure a lot of people don't realize it at first, but when you look at those 2 teams, the Dolphins and the Bengals are actually pretty similar in terms of skill position players. You got one has Tyreek Hill, one has Jamar Chase. One has Jalen Waddle, one has Tyler Boyd. And the only addition is T. Higgins on the outside, who's a big body dude. He can go up, he can get it in the red zone, and no one knows how to pinpoint a pass better than Joe Burrow. Again, this is going to be a game in Cincinnati, and we're going to talk about this player prop later, but Joe Mixon came back for the New England Patriots against the New England Patriots in the Bengals last game. And I think this is a spot where the Bengals are really going to use Joe Mixon. I think he could get closer to 20 carries in this spot. He had over 60 yards rushing in his first game back from injury. And, you have to rush the football against the Bills because you need to keep this offense off of the field as long as possible. You need to get this Bills defense as tired as possible. So, again, I really like Joe Mixon in this spot because not only does it help with the rushing attack to keep that offense off the field, things like that, but the play action game is everything in the NFL, especially when you have someone like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase running down the field. So that's really why I'm backing the Bengals in this spot. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's really going to come down to it. And personally, I think the Bengals win this with a last-second field goal or something along those lines. Actually, probably as time expires.
So I'm glad you're bringing up the whole Josh Allen versus Joe Burrow thing because, dude, like, I'm not going to deny Josh Allen's talent. Like, come on, I'm not like going to get crazy here, but like,
Yeah.
dude, like, when you turn over the football that much, especially like in this era, when it comes down to like those like Farvian throwers where like you're really trying to throw across the football field and whatnot, like, does Josh Allen have like all the talent in the world? Amazing athlete, great football player, undoubtedly.
Yep.
Is he Patrick Mahomes, even Joe Burrow, like Tom Brady, like status when he was like obviously in his like prime of primes, his two primes he's had? Like, dude, like no, like he's not. Like, I don't know if this is like a spicy hot take. I know it's definitely relatively hot, but like, is Josh Allen like one? Absolutely not. Is he two? Absolutely not. Is he three? Even like maybe even not, dude. Like, it's the turnovers for me, man. Like
Yeah.
the Buffalo Bills, their rushing averages are all jacked up because of Josh, right? It's not because they actually have a run game. It's because of his
Exactly.
ability to create off script, even run those designed plays. But nah, they like you said with like Mixon, right? Like they're able to run the ball a little bit with not that many rushing attempts as like Burrow was throwing the ball over the field against the Patriots against a much better run defense. So
Yep.
I do agree with you here that I think the Bengals honestly are playing better. That's undeniable. They are a more complete team at the moment because Buffalo, the losing of Von Miller, Matt Milano being shaken up, then their safeties being out, like Trey White, like they've had some issues on their secondary and then they're just on their defense. They haven't been able to rectify and they've allowed yards. Like they've looked susceptible while the Bengals literally, like you said, are just vibing. Like they're just the coolest team in football. They're like
Dude,
so relaxed and they're down to business, bro. And they're taking care of it.
they have swag. They get up for these spots. You know what I mean? Like beating the Kansas City Chiefs earlier this year. I believe that was at home as well. They get up for these spots. They look forward to these spots. This is a playoff style matchup. And here's the thing: the Bengals can still win the AFC. I know some shit has to happen, but the Bengals can still win the AFC. And that's also why I'm sitting here saying plus 800 Super Bowl. If they could somehow take over that number one seed, I know it's kind of out in left field, but it is possible. If that did happen, their odds are going to drop from plus 800 to what? Maybe plus 350, plus 400, something like
Dude,
that.
I'm thinking about it, right? Unless I'm missing something here because I haven't didn't do a deep dive, right? The Bengals and the Bills, if the Bengals win, they'll both be 12-4, and the Bengals will have the tiebreaker over
Yeah,
the Chiefs and the Bills. So if the Chiefs win, they'll be 13-3. So Cincinnati
yeah,
will jump to 2. So if the Bengals win both the games, their games, the Chiefs go 1-1. The Bengals are the one seed in
yeah.
NFC in the AFC. And just like for me, like I thought the Bengals run last year was more, again, I don't want to say luck, but it was more like they took advantage of fortuitous opportunities, causing that timely turnover, making that timely play, and they made the playoffs. I did not expect them to be still in this conversation. They proved me the hell wrong. They're a really great football team. And honestly, as much as Joe Burrow deserves every accolade and credit, that
Mhm.
defense headlined by their defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, that that unit, man, they also need to get some recognition as well. They have been fantastic all season long.
Man, dude, this Chiefs team has a cupcake schedule to end it. They ain't losing. So I think it is going to be the Chiefs because they got the Broncos and then the Raiders. Like, man, that's a nice way to end the season. You basically got it locked up with that. But I would love to see the Bengals somehow do it. I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, to your point, I thought last year was somewhat of a fluke. I backed the Bengals spread along the way once they hit the conference championship or the divisional round. I'm sorry. I started backing their spread, but never honestly thought they would go and beat Kansas City in Kansas City or anything like that. So, and like once again, like I'll be honest with you, I took the Ravens to win the division, and obviously the Ravens could still win this division,
Mhm.
but it shows that even guys like us, kind of sharps, doubt the Bengals at times. And I think when you're a team that people doubt, you just got that swag just a little bit more. You're much more prone to go in and upset someone because you don't really give a shit what people think about you. You're just going out there and you're playing your style of ball.
Dude, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I saw it like recently. So I'm pretty sure like Joe Burrow against the spread over his last like 20 starts is like 16-4 against the spread. So it's a lot to unpack there because
Yeah.
it's not just us. Like we're like as we look to capitalize on the inefficiencies of the market, like we're not making the market, right? There are a lot of people that are a lot smarter than us, with a lot more information than us, a lot more resources than us that are actually making the market, and even they are dead ass wrong on the Bengals. So,
Yeah.
it's impressive. It really is. It's something. There's something to be said, and that's the best game on the board this weekend. So I'm excited as hell for that Monday. Not excited to go back to work on Tuesday full time, but definitely excited for this week of football. Last but not least on live dogs, I'll go through this a little quickly because I don't love this, but I do think it's worth a look. But the Indianapolis Colts taking down the Giants on Sunday, I think would be like the perfect, just kind of like the actually just like perfectly epitomize both of these two teams' seasons. The Giants winning these close games, not having a great roster, not playing great teams, but being coached well and making the right plays. That's great. The Colts, on the other hand, one of the worst coached teams ever, having no discipline whatsoever, but their defense has never really wavered this season. So I like for the Broncos, we were talking about like their defense not showing up to that game on Christmas. Like that's just an indictment on the head coach and the organization. The Colts on Monday night, even though obviously they lost 20-3 or whatever it was, they didn't. It's not like their defense rolled over and died and let up a 50 burger, So I think that the Giants are actually gonna have some trouble moving the football on the Colts. And I think that this is a game, again, when it comes down to these possessions, these one-possession games, like Saquon's not going to be able to run all over the Colts. Daniel Jones has been great in protection, but if he throws one or two, protecting the football as in not turning the rock over, but if he coughs up one or two footballs, and the Colts can capitalize. And lastly, Nick Foles last week, obviously horrible, like no sugarcoating it, but the only like kind of silver lining is that was his literal first week of this season, even practicing with the first team, then going into a game. So that was literally like a live scrimmage for Nick Foles after a week of practice with the first team. Again, not defending one of the most horrible performances to watch, but at the same time, having a full another week and this kind of being like preseason week 2 after like a whole 2 weeks now of working with the offense, I expect a little bit more from them. And the Giants, again, a must-win game. They win, they're in the playoffs. But historically, winning in situations aren't locks by any means. Those teams actually do let down and are overvalued. So I'm taking a heavy look at the Colts +6 to make the card. Right now, I only have one play on the card I'll get into shortly, but I think they could take on the Giants this weekend. Matt, you agree, or just no point of even going there?
No, even before the show, we talked about this a little bit, and obviously it's not one that I'm like jumping to the window on, but when I saw the line and I saw the money line at +210, it was kind of like, I was like, they could beat the Giants. A lot of people can beat the Giants. And like you said, it's one of those letdown spots where you expect these teams where it's like, okay, we win and we're this much better suited to make the playoffs, and kind of like the same with the Buccaneers or, the Packers have been turning it on a little bit. But to your point, a lot of those teams go out and lose those games. A lot of the opposing teams love to play spoiler. Yep. And right now with the Indianapolis Colts, their season is essentially over. Jeff Saturday is trying to coach for a future head coaching job. So I think this is a spot too where he's going to try and get this team up. He's going to try and get them inspired. He's going to try and get them to go out and beat this New York Giants team. And again, man, this New York Giants team I don't know what they're getting, -5.5, -5.5, -6, something on that. Mm-hmm. It's tough for me to see them covering that spread against anyone, really, because they're very, very inconsistent. They don't have a ton of weapons outside of Saquon Barkley on offense. Daniel Jones, really not that talented of a thrower of the football. If you can keep him within the pocket, then you very much limit this Colts and Giants game just in general. I was looking at this too, and I was looking at the under as well. I didn't think a ton of points would be scored here because I think both teams, especially the Giants, are going to try and play safe. They're going to try and protect the football. And I think in the end, they might run it a little too safe, and it could end up biting them in the ass.
Yeah, like I think it would be the perfect, again, like kind of for some, like the Jeff Saturday story. First game wins. Absolutely horrible. And then now when it comes down to like Giants winning in at home, let's go, G-men.
Yeah.
You guys suck. Colts outright. So I can definitely see that happening. Again, this is in my least confident of any of these, but I'm not saying I will sprinkle, but Colts +6 is looking more appealing. It's already gone down back to 5.5. Not many sixes actually available, but we'll see how that market goes. But like I mentioned, I only have one player locked in. Obviously, give it out for the boys. I have a teaser of Cleveland +8.5 and the Steelers +8.5 locked in. Right now on the board, I have my favorite teaser option of the week listed in order, and that is Cleveland +8.5, Pittsburgh +8.5, Eagles -1, Seattle +7.5, Detroit PK, Cincy plus 7.5. We talked ad nauseum about the Browns already. No need to go into there. Steelers, Ravens. I don't think we need to go into too much detail either. These teams, every time they play, is within a field goal. And when Mitch Trubisky faced the Ravens the last time these two teams played, yes, the Ravens won, but the Steelers outplayed Baltimore in that game. Besides those 3 interceptions, which you can't be like, oh, it's 3 interceptions, how can you throw that away? Like, it was literally 3 shitty throws that lost the game for the Steelers, right? Again, that's a lot of shitty throws. So, like, it's, I'm not saying, like, they got gypped or anything like that, but did they outplay them and prove that they're within 8.5 points of the Baltimore Ravens? 110%. Mike Tomlin playing for the Pride and the Ravens playing for, of course, the AFC North. And this number has come down from Ravens -4 to 2.5, with Lamar probably not playing again. I just don't know how you can't back the 8.5. Eagles in New Orleans. I think it's just plain and simple. Like, the Eagles are just like so well-rounded of a team. They need this win because they want to lock in the number 1 seed. So I feel safe taking them at literally -1 or -0.5 at just a win. Even if Jalen Hurts only plays the first half, we saw Gardner Minshew is clearly good enough to be there. Yeah. This game we're going to get into more detail in a little bit later, but I think Seattle plus 7.5 is a great teaser leg. I don't know how you can back Mike White and the Jets team going on the road into Seattle. They can't run really the football well. Seattle's defense has been horrible, but I think Geno Smith in a revenge game and another playoff implications for both these teams. They both need the win. I would side with the home team getting over a touchdown. Detroit winning against the Lions, against the Bears, obviously must-win game at PK. I feel like you kind of can't go wrong unless it's a divisional play spoiler, which is why I have it lower on my list. And then obviously the Bengals plus the 7.5 if possible, as we like them outright. But Matt, any of these legs that you agree with, disagree with, or anything else you'd like to add, a leg that I didn't have here?
No, it's tough to disagree with any of them. Honestly, I do that weekly SGP on Sundays where I basically tease every single game, and then I take some player props, alternative lines, stuff like that. Generally make a crazy parlay of plus 2,000, and that might be it right there. Like, that looks pretty damn good to me. I was literally going over every single one, and I was like, yeah. Because again, it dives into our strategy, what we were talking about. Outdoor games, taking the underdog and teasing it up. And you can already see Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Seattle, Cincinnati. That's our strategy right there with all those teams. And last week, I don't think a single one missed from those outdoor teasing up spots that we talked about. So
we were taking those teasers out of the advantage teasers. They have a low total and it's within the certain ranges. Like, that is when you look to tease, right? Like, you can't tease the Chiefs minus 8 right now against the Broncos. Like, that's just a bad bet. You have a total of 45 points. Yes, the Broncos suck, but then what value are you getting? You're going from 13 to whatever 8. Like, you still don't even have a touchdown covered. Like, it's very back doors open. Like, I know the Broncos are in disarray, but like, it seems like kind of like backwards, but it's just the way that the math works out. Like, you don't tease these big dogs or these big favorites down. You want to tease those closer games because it's already the market's already telling you that they expect this to be a closer game. And in an efficient market like the NFL, you're able to add 6 to 7 points in a teaser to that side of a favorite. It's just again where the math and the money comes into play there.
No, 100%. And the only one, and we talked about this, that I would probably add to it and we'll have on my Sunday SGP is the next game that we're going to be talking about, and that's the Carolina Panthers with plus 3.5. I think you're getting some really good value there with even, a 6-point teaser to a 7-point teaser, whatever you want to do. I think you're getting some great value there because, when looking at this Tampa Bay Bucks team, it goes back to the point that we've talked about this entire episode. These teams that their playoff lives are on the line, win and in, a lot of the times they go out and lose, the Carolina Panthers are traveling on the road to face off against this Bucks team. This is a spot where the Panthers are 6-9 overall on the season, and the Bucks are 7-8.
Yeah.
Correct. I think I wrote down the wrong statistic. That's why I asked. But I believe they're 7-8 on the season. And the Panthers are now 1 game back from the Bucks in the NFC South, which how ugly is this NFC South division? My goodness. And the playoffs are potentially on the line here. As for the Buccaneers, again, 7-8 on the season, but this is a team that is 3-11-1 against the spread on the season. And at this point in time, this is a Bucks team I simply cannot back. Numerous times I was trying to catch that Bucks spot. I was trying. One time I did on a neutral field against Seattle. That was the only time. But other than that, man, you have to fade this team. And, sharp action is on the Panthers, money on the Panthers as well. And, this is a Bucs team that has lost against the spread in 5 straight games as well. And every single time you think they're going to improve, they simply do not. They have no rushing attack whatsoever. Leonard Fournette, if I'm being honest, just looks slow. He looks fat. Tom Brady ain't making the throws that he typically makes. He's overthrowing guys. On a 3rd and 8, he has guys open sometimes, and he's sailing it over his head. And I like Tom Brady just as much as the next guy, the Michigan man, but he's not playing great football at this point in time. And I think right now with the Panthers, this is a team playing far better football. They've won 3 of their last 5 games. Sam Darnold is playing all right. He's not turning it over or anything like that all that much. So I think he's actually someone I can put a little bit of faith in here. The Panthers have been running the football very, very good with Deonta Foreman at this point in time, with Chuba Hubbard as well. They have a little thunder and lightning punch. And I think this can be successful against the Buccaneers. Then on top of that, you have a nice wideout like DJ Moore on the outside, who he has burners. He's someone that I believe people sleep on, and he can make some big plays. So because of that, I really do like the look of this Carolina Panthers team. They've held teams under 20 points on top of that in 3 of their last 6 matchups. And last week against the Lions, it was a 14-point win, but that game was not close at all. So I do think this Panthers team is gelling at the correct time. I think getting plus 3.5, so definitely shop this line. The plus 3.5 is available over at PointsBet Sportsbook. It's plus 3 on the majority of other sites. But again, man, I think this is a great spot for the Carolina Panthers. Plus 3.5 against this Bucs team actually seems like a lot of points. So I have no problem backing the Panthers here, and this will probably be an official play for me.
Yeah, I'm looking in this direction myself. It's kind of the situation. It's like, how do you back the Buccaneers anymore? Like, I had them PK in a teaser on whatever that was, Sunday night, Christmas night. I actually fell asleep during the game, not going to lie, so I didn't see I just woke up and saw 19-16. I was like, all right, whatever, didn't really think much of it. Then I went back and saw the film and what happened. And I was like, oh, damn, they really almost blew that shit. But the only 2 things that concern me about Carolina is, one, J.C. Horn, their top cornerback. I don't think he's going to play, and he is a difference maker for this team. And number 2 is what this essentially is a playoff game between Sam Darnold and Tom Brady, right? You cannot discredit the Panthers' defense, first of all, and their run game. Their ability to pound the ball down the line's throat last week is, that's just doing that to any NFL team at any time is just a testament to you guys. And like I respect the hell out of the Panthers for their game plan, one of the better ones in football, and they executed, and they're in a position to win the NFC South. The only thing that gives me, again, slight pause is that it's a playoff game between Sam Darnold and Tom Brady. And I agree, at the 3.5 is ridiculous. You're getting that field goal, 9.5 in a teaser. Like, I definitely like the outlook there. It's just, again, like, Sam Darnold, Tom Brady, must-win game. That's the only thing that gets me a little bit like, there's 14, 15 other games on the board. I don't have to hone in on that one.
No, I totally agree with you. That is definitely the one thing that you have to worry about, because really all you can go off of is track record, go off of history and stuff like that. And history definitely says that Tom Brady wins this game, and Sam Darnold probably makes a mistake or 2. Yeah. But again, to your point, or what we talked about earlier, the Panthers have been running the hell out of the football. So I think, hopefully, at least, I think they'll come in with a solid game plan, running Deonta Foreman, running some quick passes, getting out on the edge with someone maybe like Chuba Hubbard, relying on their defense a little bit. Because, again, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but this Buccaneers team, I mean, when's the last time they've scored over 24 points, 27 points? This is one of those spots where if, in fact, the Carolina Panthers can go out and score 14 points, can go out and score 17 points, that right there might be enough to cover that 3.5 spread.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to definitely come down to the wire, and I think the Panthers are definitely in play here. It's just it's a tough one, because it's hard to go against Brady in the situation. I know if you did this all year, you would have been profitable, but I don't know. It sounds square as hell just to be like, oh, the only thing is Darnold versus Brady, but like,
no, I hear you.
What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, again. Moving on to another game, though, before we get to our player props for the week, this is another must-win game. I don't know how teams perform, like which team performs better in a must-win game, just like the Panthers and Buccaneers, like both, that's a must-win for both of those teams. This is a must-win for both of these two teams. The Seattle Seahawks hosting the New York Jets. Mike White cleared to play, will be starting. Joe Flacco will be backing him up. So Zach Wilson, his 2022 season has come to an end. I like Seattle here. I mean, the Jets defense, of course, is great, even though they lost to the Jaguars on Thursday night last week. They're coming in rested, going across the coast, and they're going to have again their better quarterback up. And Mike White is definitely at least like a 2.5 to 3 point upgrade over Wilson. But Seattle, their defense has been horrible over the last couple of weeks after it started off looking like very improved, then it kind of has regressed to the mean. I just have so many doubts about the New York Jets coming into Seattle with no run game, with Mike White as their quarterback, going against the Geno Smith in a revenge type game. I find it hard to see them just winning on the road. I know the Jets do match up well as they're able to get some pressure on Geno, as the offensive line for Seattle isn't great and the Jets' defensive line is good. Their ability to prevent the run has been good, but this isn't, again, something I'm running to the window to bet, as I'm kind of still waiting. As I said, like the Seahawks, if I'm getting 7.5 in a teaser, a little bit more. But I want to hear from you too, Matt. I just don't see this New York Jets team walking into Seattle and asserting their dominance realistically.
No, I can't either. I think people are buying too heavy into the Mitch White hype. I looked at this earlier, and I believe I saw like around 60% of the bets are on the Jets on top of that. And, I don't know what confidence people get with the New York Jets in this spot to travel from New York across the country. You got to remember, this is a cross the country trip too, going from New York all the way to Seattle. They're playing in the 12th man, so that stadium is definitely going to be hype. It's an outdoor stadium on top of that. And, the Jets had that situation last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars and honestly got their asses spanked. They did not play good whatsoever. Zach Wilson, my goodness, you almost feel bad for the guy. Like, he reminds me of Johnny Manziel at this point in time. Like, it's just not good. And he's throwing off his back foot. He has no clue where he's throwing the football. It's bad. But regardless, he's not playing. That's neither here nor there. And it is Mitchell White. But again, Mitchell White has put up at least 450 yards of offense in 4 of his last 6 starts. But again, when you're out for a couple games, getting plugged back in, we talked about this earlier in the episode, you're all of a sudden plugged back in. It takes a little time to get that synergy going, to get that chemistry going, stuff like that. And to your point, once again, when you have no rushing attack with the New York Jets, ever since Breece Hall went down, they have definitely struggled. And they've had some guys who will make an emergence for one game, or I forget the Zahir White, or I forget the other guy's name, but they have Michael Carter Jr., who's okay, but he's more of like a third down type guy. So again, if you can't get the rushing attack going, then you're putting a lot of pressure on Mitchell White, who is sliding back in after a couple game absence. I think that's pretty tough. And then one thing I didn't even think about that you just mentioned is the revenge narrative with Geno Smith. I think the Seattle Seahawks really want to go get this game for Geno. Just like in week 1, they really wanted to go get that game for Pete Carroll against Russell Wilson. I think this is a very similar story. I think, the crowd, like I said earlier, gets really hyped behind this. It's a tough place to go and play in Seattle. Yeah, I would be backing Seattle here as well.
Yeah, so again, I only have one play on my card right now. Obviously, Friday at noon at this point when we're recording. So getting close to crunch time, I obviously want to get the plays in. I obviously never force anything, but looking like Seattle will definitely be on my card there. Also, just coming down to head coaching and and we can get into this at a different show because I actually want to hear your thoughts. But there has to be a point of diminishing returns as a head coach where talking about a Rob Saleh and even a Ron Rivera, right? Do the players respect the hell out of him? Would run through a brick wall for them? Love them 110%. But other game management things that they don't do well that over the long term is probably going to sink your team. Yeah, I think Robert Saleh, when it's come down to some of these in-game coaching, game management decisions, I don't think he's been so great this year, and it hasn't really been talked about because of how well the Jets have played and overperformed, which again, he deserves kudos for, but I still am not sold for him as a head coach. Obviously, we know we have with Pete Carroll all these years in the league, and again, I'm not saying spot play fully, but just Jets laying points in Seattle, come on, you know what I mean? Come on. But let's finish it off with some props here. You touched on it briefly. You like Joe Mixon over 50.5 rushing yards against the Bills. Pretty obvious to see why, but talk to me, Matt.
Yeah, man. Honestly, when we were talking about this before the show, like Eric and I were sitting here, we always prep for like 5 minutes, just kind of discuss everything, what we like, what we don't like. And I was like, yeah, I'm really liking Joe Mixon this week. I don't know if his line's out. I bet it's at like 65.5 or something. And I go and look at it, and this thing is at 50.5 rushing yards. And to me, this is kind of absurd. You know, they're facing the Buffalo Bills. This is a game that is in Cincinnati. It's going to be outdoors, and it's going to be playoff style atmosphere. And when you are in the playoffs and facing a team like the Buffalo Bills, like the Kansas City Chiefs, you want to keep that offense off the field as long as possible. How do you do that? You run the football, and you run the football with Joe Mixon. Last week, Joe Mixon came back, had a good game against the New England Patriots, having 16 carries for 61 yards, over a 4-yard per carry average. And this is a number Joe Mixon has hit in 8 of 13 games this season on top of that. You know, early in the season, Joe Mixon and the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line were playing absolutely brutal on top of it. He had a 3.1 yard per carry average. It slowly crept up. He's at a 4.0 yard per carry average now. And to me, having 16 carries for 61 yards against the Patriots in New England is more difficult than in Cincinnati against the Bills. You know, I'm not that impressed with this Buffalo Bills team. I will fade the shit out of this Buffalo Bills team all the way to the Super Bowl if I have to. I really do not care, because I just think I don't think they get up for big spots. And I think Josh Allen makes mistakes, like I said. So again, this could be because of game flow. Maybe somehow the books think the Bills get up early and the Bengals have to pass, maybe. But I'm with this over 50.5. I think this is just way too low for me. Even in 2-minute drills now and then, you see Joe Mixon getting involved in draw plays, stuff like that. It's a playoff style atmosphere. Once again, when the playoffs are here, you need to run the football, because what does that open up? We talk about it every episode, the play action attack. When you have the play action attack going with guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins running down the sideline, you are going to be that much more successful. So I love this play. This is probably the favorite prop that I've seen all season long. I think this is way too low. I'm definitely going to be hitting this. I'm going to be probably jumping in the window right when we get off this show and plugging this one in. But yeah, let me know what you think about this too. I think this is kind of absurd.
No, I think it's very low. We've seen Buffalo's inability to pound the run. The only thing that gives me any pause, because obviously you got to look at it from both sides, is just the fact that Zach Taylor loves putting 5 out wide and just slinging the hell out of that rock. So, like, I could see the game script getting away. The thing is, like, it's not like I really can. Like, I could see, like, because there's no rhyme or reason. Like, Zach Taylor has already proven he's not a great NFL head coach. The fact of the matter is, probably only like 5 actually good coaches in the NFL anyway, which is, again, another discussion for another time. We could talk about this during some of like the off-season shows, but I think we're in for a dog fight, man. I think it's going to be great. I think the 50.5, no, I totally agree that it's there. Again, the only thing would be if Zach Taylor's just like, screw it, we're throwing the football over the place, which like could happen regardless of the score and time, honestly. But again, 50.5 yards for Mixon, who's going to get at least 15 carries, seems a little low. I'll finish off here. The number is not out still, and I can't believe it. I'm looking everywhere, but I'm looking for a Deshaun Watson passing yards prop. I assume it's going to be pretty low, only because, again, the numbers are inflated negatively for him because he literally played 2 of his last games in some of the worst weather of this season and also seasons past, and he's looked better every single time he's played. Again, no odds yet. If it's over 250 is when I'm going to start pausing, but if you're giving me 249.5 or under, that's the automatic play for me this week. I'm watching over. I think it is his breakout game. Welcome to Cleveland, and it's going to be at my expense as he crushes my playoff hopes and dreams as I'm watching on the couch on Sunday.
Hey, and I'm with you here. This is one of those spots where I think you continue to ramp it up game by game by game. Like you said, 2 of those games that he was playing in had some of the worst weather throughout the entire NFL. And this is one of those spots where I think we could see Deshaun Watson pop off. You know who else I could potentially see pop off is Donovan Peoples-Jones. What's that?
He's so good. I love him.
Dude, exactly. And Donovan Peoples-Jones is very much slept on. He's a big body. He runs very good routes. He's fast. He has a very good streak route. So wouldn't be surprised. He's someone you can get some great value on at even 50 yards receiving. 50 yards and a touchdown would probably be plus 300. And it's something I wouldn't be surprised to see at all. I think as the Cleveland Browns grow, I think we're going to see Deshaun Watson and actually DPJ having one of the top connections. Obviously Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson are going to generate a connection as well. But I think someone who's very much slept on is Peoples-Jones. That dude has a ton of talent and a ton of potential, especially now that he has a quarterback who can deliver him the football all over the field.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, a Browns too, right? Like, looking at last week, like Donovan Peoples-Jones, Njoku, and Amari Cooper all dropped touchdowns. Like, that game was theirs for the taking. No, I think again, Peoples-Jones is great, and I do agree with your outlook there. And unfortunately, again, it's going to be at my expense. But going back to the weather again, we're talking about Deshaun Watson playing against Baltimore in 10-degree weather, then playing against the Saints in negative 10-degree weather. And right now, obviously, subject to change. Sunday at 1:00 in DC, it's supposed to be fucking 50 degrees, bro. Like, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to not bode well for Washington, unfortunately. But that's going to do it for us today. A little bit of a longer show, but we're getting into the real details of the NFL. I hope you guys all enjoyed. We're kind of giving out 2 $100 free bets, so make sure you take advantage of that opportunity to get some money heading into Week 18. And then, of course, we'll have something going for Wild Card Weekend. But we appreciate everybody. If you could give us a like, subscribe to our channel, rate the podcast, download that shit. That's the best way to help us grow. We really appreciate that. And you can find us on Twitter at Bettor's Almanac, at Moneyline_Matt, and myself at Slime Action. We appreciate you guys. Happy New Year. Let's win some bets this weekend.
Peace, y'all.